We continue the conversation with the Transport Minister, Sindisiwe Chikunga. A very good evening to you, Minister. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us. I'd like to start with the increase in the number of fatalities that you mentioned, Gauteng being at the top, followed by Mpumalanga. What has been the reasons for the increased number of deaths on the roads?
Good evening, Tepiso, and good evening to your viewers, and good evening to South Africans. Gauteng, we know that they've got the largest number of vehicles in South Africa. In fact, almost half the number of South African vehicles and population. And because of that, there may be some expectation that Gauteng may have more accidents than any other province in South Africa. However, even if that is an expectation, the numbers are too high, and the numbers are not associated with human error, which is any one of us can have because we are human beings and we therefore can err. The numbers are actually associated with factors such as speeding, such as drunken driving, such as reckless driving, and therefore it's things that can be avoided even if they have a high population of vehicles, but that should be the case. And then, of course, in Mpumalanga, they were doing very well until just on the last day where they had more accidents, whence they therefore recorded an increase. But also in Mpumalanga, I think one of the reasons will be the many overloaded vehicles to our neighboring countries. And that might therefore be accounting for the number of accidents that happened.
As I was listening to you speak, Minister, about reckless behavior and speeding, I was actually recalling something that I saw about 2 days ago, a minibus taxi that did an illegal U-turn in oncoming traffic. So in such instances, how are police working at ensuring that they keep, particularly when you talk about public transportation, compliant with the rules? Because it seems that some people really are law unto themselves on the roads.
In fact, such driving can be reported to the police by anyone, including any road user. But of course, if there is a traffic officer there, that somebody should be arrested. I think what is important is for South Africans to know that they themselves cannot do wrong things, because we're not going to have a traffic officer on each and every kilometer or 10 kilometers because we don't have such numbers. But one thing good about South Africa is that any person who drives has actually undergone some training and written examination, which included the road signs, included the ability to drive. And then when you get onto the road, it's because you've passed these two. One, the road signs, and second, the driving itself. And which therefore means that you're driving because you are able to drive. And that is why, and also you know the road signs. And that is why it is important that whether they are police or whether they are traffic officers or not, you cannot do something that you know it is wrong. Because you are actually putting the lives of other people in danger, including your own life, including the life of your passengers. And therefore, respecting those that you are driving is important. And that is why people cannot drink and then drive other people. Because they are actually saying, they are nothing. You can drive them even if you're under the influence of alcohol. Even if you know for sure that you are not at that time supposed to drive, but you are driving them. And that is criminality. And that is why when we find you, we arrested a number of people at the roadblock where we were. And one of them was get drunk, driving on the national road. That was very busy, and we just decided that we're going to keep this person until on Tuesday. And that is what we said to our traffic officers, that whoever that we find on the road driving under the influence of alcohol, driving at a speed that is above 160 kilometers per hour, and we don't issue an infringement notice, but we arrest them. But more than anything, we really plead with South Africans. I'm so concerned about this long weekend. Just one province, for instance, during the last long weekend, they contributed 44 dead bodies, dead people, fatalities. And that is an average number then around 2014, where in the country about 45 people were dying per day. And the case was reduced to about 35 people dying per day, which is still very high. But for one province, for one day, 44 people dying, that is just too much. And that is why, and this happens during the long weekend, associated with drunken driving, associated with speeding in residential areas, associated with a sense of irresponsibility, lawlessness, do not care. I have a right to be on the road. It's my car. And that is the problem that we are seeing on the road. But I just want again to appreciate and to thank many South Africans who are abiding by the rules of the road, who actually heeded our calls. When we were at that operation, the road was very busy, and some of our relatives were actually telling us that, hey, the entry is very busy. And that actually means that the people of South Africa are heeding our call to say, as much as it is possible, please drive during the day, because at least many of the accidents are happening at night than during the day. And many people who believe that we don't have traffic officers after 8 or after 9 in the evening, then they do as they wish. And unfortunately, this time around, we have got traffic officers on the road.
Minister, you're saying there was one province that accounted for almost 40%, if I heard you correctly, of the fatalities during this period, particularly the long weekend. Which province is that? And could you also tell us a little bit more about the 6-point strategy that you have to deal with such challenges?
It's not 44, it's 44 bodies, it's 44 fatalities, 44 dead people. And that was KZN during this long weekend, because many people drive to KZN. And as it is happening right now, for instance, entry is very, very busy. It started being busy in the morning today. Up until now, the road is still very busy. It's much busy. If you look at the numbers that's passed by our toll gates, if you look at where we were, for instance, there will be, say, 1,600 per hour. But if you go to Moiriba, you'll find that by the time in Moiriba, there's something like 2,000 plus per hour, which means many provinces are joining the entry to KZN, but also people from KZN are actually driving Durban. And if that is the case, then we need, and we now have a plan for Durban. We have a plan for Wamasho, a plan for Mlazi, a plan for Nanda, but also a plan for Pietermaritzburg, around the areas of Ashdown, Mbali. And if you go to the rural part of of Pietermaritzburg, because again there were quite a number of accidents there. So we have actually identified those hotspots, and we have put in place a plan, and it will be intelligence led, and we will be reviewing that plan as and when things happen, with the aim of preventing. Where we think that maybe we have not identified, we will immediately act. But what is important, I want to emphasize this point, we will not be everywhere. We will not be able to be everywhere. But where we are not present, there are South Africans who can drive. There are South Africans who know that if you are drinking and you are a pedestrian, you should not be on the road. You should actually drink from home. And if you are to walk in the darkness, they know that you've got at least to wear clothing that are bright or reflector clothing. But you cannot drink and cross the road. You can't. The South Africans know that, with or without the traffic officers. And one has to emphasize this point, because if we were only to depend on the traffic officers being present, or even the South African Police Service members being present, then of course the accidents are going to happen. It's 44 families losing their members. Acutely, suddenly, they are not there. It's families that today are waiting for their fathers, for their mothers who are coming from work, for their brothers, who children are expecting that they are bringing some new clothes for Christmas. Next thing, the message is that they can no longer arrive because there's an accident and they are dead. And that is what we are trying to prevent. That is the pain. That is the shock. That is a feeling that can never be explained by anyone. That we are trying to prevent from South Africans. And that is why we expect South Africans to join us in this task, which is very mammoth. If you look at the coming weekend, I am extremely concerned. If you look at the fact that we have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of drinking, excessive drinking, and people doing as they wish.
Minister, thank you very much for your time. The Transport Minister, Sindisiwe Chikunga, just speaking about the midterm festive season road fatality statistics, concerns over heavy drinking, as she's just mentioned, and also just speaking to us about the safety plans over this period.